Okay, so I have anaphora. Anaphora is the repetitive use of a word or phrase at regular intervals to emphasize a point, highlight an idea, or strengthen an argument. Okay, the background of anaphora is it came from the Hebrew word meaning carrying back or carrying again, which makes sense because the repeated word or phrase creates this sort of connection between the different parts of the sentences and paragraphs throughout the work, and it stresses the importance of those ideas, which is why anaphora is such an effective rhetorical strategy. Its roots are traced all the way back to biblical times, making it one of the oldest literary devices, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And Romantic and Elizabethan writers followed that example, and they popularized it until it was used in all different types of literature. Okay, so hypothetically, a daughter might say to her mother, "Come on, Mom, you always say no. You always tell me I can go to the mall the next time, and I'm always the one that misses out on something." She is stressing that she feels that there needs to be a change by repeating always. And then a car salesman might say to a potential customer, "We have the best car right here for the best financing. We can offer you the best payment plan you can get. This is the best deal you will ever make." Which, obviously, he's trying to convince him that he should really take the deal because it is the best one he'll ever make. In George Orwell's Shooting an Elephant, he says, "Some of the people said that the elephant had gone in one direction. Some said he had gone in another. Some professed not to have even heard of the elephant." And then later he says, "I look at the sea of yellow faces above the garish clothes, faces all happy and excited over this bit of fun, all certain that the elephant was going to be shot." In those examples, some was repeated, and also all. And then yellow faces, even though it's not repeated in this bit, it's repeated several times throughout the entire essay. And then there are many examples of anaphora in the Old Testament, but particularly in Matthew, the Sermon on the Mount, there are 8 blessings described, and each one he begins with "Blessed are." In The Glass Castle, Jeanette says, "I wondered if the fire had been out to get me. I wondered if all fire was related, like Dad said all humans were related." And she shows uncertainty by expressing her. Okay, so taking a look at ads in the real world, there are many signs here that say sale to capture the attention because of the repetitiveness. And then other common ads you see everywhere, you know all the logos and everything, and they get stuck in your mind and get you thinking about it, which is a good rhetorical device for business. So these 2 leaders listed here both used anaphora in their famous speeches. Winston Churchill repeated "we shall," and John F. Kennedy "we chose." I have a dream. Okay, so we all know Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech. Obviously, anaphora is "I have a dream," but he also has a couple other things. I'm going to read it here. 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives in a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. And by this, he stresses that his dream is long overdue because it's been 100 years. Then he says, "Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children." And here's basically a call to action. So that's basically it for anaphora, which again is the regular repetition of words or phrases. If you would like to see a full transcript of Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech, the link is here. Have a nice day.